All right, what is up, my peoples? How's everybody doing? Hope you're all doing good, doing well, I should say, to be grammatically correct. All right, today I'm not going to actually make you do any Edpuzzle stuff. We'll work on that again Monday because I need to get Lucas from the tech company to make sure those videos are available for you, like the commandments videos and everything, so that videos on my channel, so there's no issues. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just write along in your notes, please. Take your printed notes, write along so you can follow along. I'm feeling pretty good right now. Just had dinner, shower. Dinner was really good. Dinner, I had like an Annie Ann's pretzel dog, but it was frozen, but it was really good. So highly recommend, especially if you put it in the oven. And also some grilled chicken. It was amazing. What did you guys have for dinner last night? You're probably seeing this in the morning. What did you have for breakfast? You eating breakfast? So we're eating some breakfast. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to talk to you guys about the notes. Going to do 2 slides of notes, and that'll pretty much be it. It's Friday, so I'm going to take it a little easier on you guys. So just watch this lecture. All right, take your notes. Make sure you fill in the blanks for the notes. Okay, make sure you're following along. That's pretty much it. All right. And make sure you do your warm-up assignment. I'm giving you guys 2 videos to watch. So, all right. Here we go. Let's share the screen. Okay. So we are back with a little review, 10 plagues. You guys watched the video on this. Okay. Moses returns to Egypt. Pharaoh does not let them go. Moses says, hey, you got to let them go. Pharaoh's like, no, gives him signs. 10 plagues. You guys watched all that. Blood of an unblemished lamb. Guys, the answer to the question I gave you guys in the Edpuzzle yesterday was the lamb on the door is as I said, a foreshadowing of Jesus. Okay, it's a foreshadowing of the Eucharist. Why? Because they put the blood of the lamb on the door, which protected them from the angel of death, or it could be a demon. We don't really know. And in protecting them, and they also ate the lamb. So what happens with the Eucharist? Well, Jesus became the new Passover lamb, right? Like you eat the lamb. Jesus is the new sacrificial lamb. He's the one giving himself up, sacrifice, just like that lamb did in Egypt. So he's the new sacrificial lamb. We eat him in the Eucharist on Sundays, and he protects us from evil, and he takes evil out of our hearts, just as the lamb protected them from the evil on the outside of death. Jesus protects you and cures you of all evil all over the place, outside, inside. So keep that in mind, okay? And when did Jesus make the first Mass and really make the Eucharist his body and blood? Anyone know what night that was? Yeah, it was Passover. He was celebrating Passover on the Last Supper before he died when he made the Eucharist, right? Which is crazy. So all kinds of similarities there. All right. So here's what happens. Pharaoh lets them leave. Okay, after he loses his first son, he's just grief-stricken. He says, you can go. That is the night of Passover. Okay, so they leave. All right, here's their journey to the Promised Land. Moses and the Hebrews escape. They all start caravanning away from Egypt. But Pharaoh then sees them leave, freaks out, changes his mind, and sends his armies back. His grief has now turned to rage, right? So then they're running from the Egyptian army, and they're stuck at the Red Sea. Moses leads them, and they have the Red Sea in front of them. They have Moses' armies behind them, and God says, take the staff in your hands, put it down, and then raise your hands. He does, and the waters literally part. They form walls so that as you can see in the picture, so the entire Hebrew people can walk right through. A lot of scholars said, oh, that couldn't happen. Those things don't happen. Well, guys, I mean, like my conversion that came from my heart being red, and there's no physical explanation for that. There's no physical way that could happen. I know the family of a woman who had the stigmata on Good Fridays, who could also reach your heart, who prayed for people and they were healed of diseases, I mean, who levitated while she was praying. These things do happen. God can do miracles, so I do fully believe that this did actually happen, the way it says in the Bible. So, okay, that's just my opinion, but I think it did. Okay, so they escape. They travel in. What happens is Pharaoh sends his armies in after them, and as soon as the last Hebrew crosses the Red Sea, what happens? Moses lets down his staff. It doesn't say this in the notes, but the waters crash down and engulf the Egyptian chariots, the horses, and the army. So bad move by Pharaoh. All right. So They're on the other side of the Red Sea, and now they're going to journey towards the promised land that God has been promising them. God has been promising them this land since Abraham, hundreds of years before they even got to Egypt. God was promising them a certain land. He promises them, he says, I'm going to give you a land overflowing, filled with milk and honey, where you're going to have crops, it's going to be fertile, because you're talking about desert, right? You're talking about a desert. There's like no resources around, right? And so God says, hey, I'm going to bring you to a beautiful land that is just totally abundant, right? You got to trust in me. So they're on their way, but they quickly make a pit stop at a mountain. Make sure you know this for the test, called Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, okay? S-I-N-A-I. Please write it down. Mount Sinai. That's where they stop, because God wants to talk to Moses, okay? So at Mount Sinai, Moses goes at the top of the mountain alone to talk to God. Nobody else was able to talk to God because they were not holy enough. Moses wasn't even perfect, right? But he was definitely the best they had, right? The best God had. He was one of the greatest people of the Old Testament. He's the only person that could kind of sort of handle God's glory. This is why I don't want to die in mortal sin, guys. When you die, if you're not ready for the Lord, you're not at peace with him, your soul will not be able to handle it. It's not because he's mean or doesn't love you. It's actually the love and the glory and the power is so overwhelming that if your soul's not ready, it bolts, it runs forever the opposite direction. But guess what? There is no other direction. That's called hell, okay? So he goes up to the top of the mountain alone to talk to God. God gets up there and he gives Moses a new covenant. So remember, he made a covenant with Noah. Well, first with Adam, kind of. Then with Noah, the covenant was to never destroy the world again by flood. Then he makes the big covenant with Abraham, right? I'm going to give you a people, a land, right? And a son, Isaac, who carries that forward, okay? And now he's making a new covenant, and that is Moses. So he's like, God's like upping his covenant, like covenant 2.0, covenant 3.0. He's never going back on his other covenants. He never like stops and says, all right, this covenant is like done for. Those covenants always continue, the one with Noah, the one with Abraham. He's upgrading it to a new one here, all right? So he goes, he comes back down with a new covenant, and this covenant is like the first one where it's like God's really putting it down, like literally in writing what's happening, okay? So it's getting real serious and more specific. Before, with Noah and Abraham, God's kind of like, just trust me. All God asked of them was trust, right? He didn't ask them for love, and he didn't ask them to be like saints. They weren't ready for it yet, right? Now God is actually taking it a step further, and he's now saying, okay, I wanted Abraham to trust me and Noah to trust me, and now I'm asking you guys a little more. God's starting to reveal more of who he is. He's actually going to ask them to behave a certain way, not just trust them. He says the rest of the other nations in the world are losing it. They're losing their stuff, okay? And they're evil, they're barbaric. I mean, and I need you to not behave like them. So we're going from trust to even more than that, behavior. Okay. So the Sinai covenant, God's covenant with Moses on Sinai, it involves three main promises, okay? The first promise is, so God promises all these things to the Israelites. First one is this: God and the chosen people, Israel, or the Hebrews you could say, are now entering into a personal, loving union. God is starting to compare it to marriage. Remember, before with Abraham, he just said, trust me. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to make of you a great nation and a land. Just trust me. Now God's saying, I'm not just going to like give you a nation and a land and like a lot of people and descendants. I'm actually going to be close to you myself. God says, like, I'm singling you guys out. It's like we're married. God compares himself to the groom and Israel to the bride. Okay, which just says a lot about marriage. That's why I'm so excited to get married soon. God could have chosen any like analogy, any comparison he could have, and he's thinking, he's like, man, like, how can I possibly show Israel how close I am to them and how much I love them? They're not going to understand it. What's the closest two people can get? Marriage. So he uses marriage as an example of how close he is to them. Okay. He also is going to see the Israelites, or the Hebrews, they're not called Israelites quite yet. He's also going to see them as special. He's not going to treat them the way he treats other nations. Other nations, not that God ever gives up on anybody, right? I'm sure there were some good Egyptians who went to heaven, even though they were all worshiping crazy stuff and half of them were possessed and everything like that. Whenever there's a good person, God can get them to heaven and loves them and loves everybody. But as far as full nations are concerned, no other nation was anywhere close to Israel because they were so evil, like in general. Like there was no other nation he could really truly work with. So he says, I'm going to actually treat you guys different than I'm treating everybody else. No one else could even come close to understanding these laws. He's like, I got a thing for you guys. You guys are the underdog. You guys are tiny. Everyone else wants to take you down. And you have a little bit of goodness in you left over from like Seth and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. So like, I'm going to try to expand that and give you some laws to live by. And you're going to be a special people. Okay. So he's promising to show them a lot of love and a lot of mercy. And he's going to discipline them. He's going to discipline them. And he's not going to discipline other nations the same way. Let me give you an example. If there's a kid in class who I know for a fact won't respond to me trying to discipline them, I'll just send an email to Spence. I kind of give up on them. I don't give up on their soul or anything or say they're a bad person. I never do that. But I'm like, all right, no matter what I say, it's just going to make things worse. I just got to tell them to go down to Spencer, right? But if there's somebody, so I might actually be a little easier on them, or it seems, than someone who I know will change. If there's someone who's a pretty good kid who actually will respond really well to me saying, hey, like, what are you doing, man? Like, and like getting, or girl or whatever, right? And I'm getting in their face a little more and I yell, and if I know that like they're a good, humble person and me yelling at them might actually be kind of good for them and they'll change, I'm going to treat them differently than the person I kind of gave up on and said, just leave, right? That's what he's going to do with Israel. He's going to love them in a very special way. He's going to show them a lot more mercy than other nations, and he's also going to discipline them as like his own son or daughter, right? And he kind of didn't do that with other nations, okay? So last but not least, here's the only thing he asks of Israel. He says, please, he's like, just obey my laws. That's all I ask. He's like, I'll love you. I'll be your God. I'll be so close to you. It's like a marriage. I'll protect you. I'll treat you different than every other nation in a special way. I'll make sure you have success and get to the promised land and even be happy there. All I ask is that you obey my laws. He gives them many laws. The most important ones, the ones that Catholics still follow to this day, are the 10 Commandments. We're going to go through the 10 Commandments on Monday. So I'm going to stop there, but let's just go to our chart really quick. So just make sure you know that last thing is that all he asked from the Israelites or the Hebrews in return is just for them to stay like loyal to him and just obey his laws, especially the 10 Commandments, which like, guys, I kind of feel bad for God. People are like, oh, God is so mean in the Old Testament. He's so all about fairness and justice and he doesn't show any mercy. He shows them a lot of mercy. And if you look at the 10 Commandments, I mean, give God a break. All he wants us to do is be good. That's all he wants. It's not even because he gets anything out of it. He just wants us to be good because it's best for us and we're going to be happiest that way. All he's asking the Israelites is, hey, just trust me and be good. Obey the 10 Commandments. Be good to each other. Be good to me, please, because it's good for you. Poor God. All right. So I'm going to now share you the whiteboard that I have going on here so we know exactly where we're at on this chart. Here we go. So you got Adam and Eve here, all right? As you remember, a little review, they had Cain and Abel and Seth. Abel is conveniently crossed out because he's dead, all right? You know the story there. Get this out. Oh, that was an accident. Let me get this out of the way. How do I move this? There we go. Okay. So Seth, as you know, had some decency left in him. He was not totally corrupted by sin, and so Noah is a descendant of his, and you guys know the rest. Big, huge flood comes. Let's draw that little flood, because I didn't draw it yet. Big, huge flood comes because of all the sin in the world. Remember, some of the sons of Seth, or men in the line of Seth, saw the daughters of Cain, thought they were cute, and married them kind of for the wrong reasons, and then they all fell into sin as well. All right, so then you got Noah, and the flood happens, but Noah survives. And so what happens after Noah? Well, after Noah comes this is hundreds of years probably later, okay? Just remember that. Like each hour is like a lot of time, hundreds and hundreds of years. You got Abraham, right? Abraham. Okay. And the world started to become sinful again after this. I mean, like Noah's other sons had some mistakes. Obviously, remember Noah's big sin, his nasty son Ham. So I'm gonna draw like a little thing for like Ham's descendants, right? Oh, you know what? I forgot about Noah's descendants. Hold on. Let me go back. Okay. We're going to go Noah, and then after Noah he had 3 sons. I am messing up all over the place here. 3 sons. You guys know he had Ham, Japheth, and Shem. Okay, wow, I'm so bad at this. All right. So you got Japheth. Shem, he was the good one. Japheth was like, okay, you know what I mean? He wasn't he wasn't as protected though, like from evil. Shem, and then you got good old, nasty, horrible, insecure, because his name is Ham. Okay, so then you know what happens with Ham. Ham's horrible sin leads to Canaan. So we can draw Canaan in there. And then he has many descendants who are all struggling with the same stuff he was conceived in. Remember, there's no cure for sin back then, so it's kind of nasty. Then you got, oops, not going well right now. Okay, and he has a lot of descendants, and they are all called, you got it, the Canaanites. Let's stamp them in here. Those nasty, violent, sinful people, and they populate a lot of the world, right? And then Japheth has some descendants too. I'm sure not all of them are bad, but you know, like it's not going well for the world. The world is getting sinful, more and more sinful again, right? There's just sin, and I mean, guys, it was really bad. I mean, barbaric. Okay, and so what happens? Well, God's going to give descendants then to Shem because he's the protected one, and down the line comes, yep, Abraham. Put him in there. And then after Abraham, his son, we'll just go, we'll dash Isaac and then Jacob. Okay? And then what happens? So more and more sin throughout the world. Let's keep stamping away. Oh gosh, there's random sin up there too, I guess. All right, sin, everywhere. And God continues to protect this little line of people. Continues to protect them. So draw a little protection. Here we go. Protection. Very good. I'm a horrible drawer, I know, or artist, whatever you want to call it. Okay, Jacob has 12 sons, so we're going to type that in there real quick. They become the 12 tribes of Israel. So that they have a lot of kids, right? 12 tribes of Israel. We're going to do a little more of this, okay? And then they go to Egypt. And that's when, who was the next person in our story comes? Yes, good old Moses. This is way down the line. I'm going to draw on our arrow. Arrows, remember, hundreds of years. Okay. And you got good old Moses. Amen. Okay. And they are no longer in Egypt. Okay. And you know, just so you know what's going on, we're at the 10 Commandments. So I'm going to type in a little note, reminding you guys that he's got the commandments. 10 commandments. Oops. Given. Okay, that's here. All right. So that's where we're at in our salvation history chart. It's going to get better and better. You'll see. Guys, thanks for bearing with me. I know it was a really long lecture. If you stuck through this whole time, good for you. I'm going to say a prayer tonight for all those that stuck through the whole time, that God will give you extra graces from this lesson. And I'm going to say a prayer for those that didn't, because they probably need it. Don't tell them I said that. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend, because it's Friday, or it will be Friday when you watch it. And this has been Mr. P. For everyone here at Holy Cross Prep Academy, good night, good day, good morning. Shalom, because, you know, we're talking in Jewish talk right now. This is Old Testament. See ya.